Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our California Dream for All Shared Appreciation Loan Program information session. My name is Jason Maida. I'm with American Pacific Mortgage, and it's great that you get a chance to join with us. We're going to do a live class tonight. It's going to be Q&A format. I do have some kind of formatted slides I want to walk you through this evening, but we wanted to share this content with you as the leading provider of CalHFA programs across the state. I thought it'd be really important to help kind of share with you a little bit more about California Dream for All, the shared appreciation loan. This is phase 2 of the program. Phase 1 launched last year. That was wildly successful. And then phase 2 is expected to launch in April, with the registrations beginning April 3rd, running through April 29th. You're going to learn all you need to know about the shared appreciation loan this evening. This is a live Q&A format. So what we'll do is, as we roll through tonight's content, I'll be answering questions on air, but as we go through the beginning parts of tonight's discussion, we'll take you through some of kind of the backdrop of the Dream for All program. I know there's a lot of excitement in our communities across California, and this is a program that really can make homeownership a reality for so many families. It's designed to support low to moderate income families in homeownership. Just a little bit about American Pacific Mortgage and ourselves here in our office. Our office in Sacramento is the leading provider of CalHFA loans across the state. We specialize in educating our local communities in homeownership. We do that through our educational platform. In fact, just this afternoon, we taught a workshop in a different part of the country, but we just helped educate that community on what homeownership can look like. We have over 20 years of experience in first-time homebuyer lending, and we're part of the CalHFA Lending Heroes program, which recognizes the top lenders in the program. So we're really proud to be a part of the CalHFA family, to be able to provide these products across the state. And education is really the backdrop of that. And so I think really in tonight's discussion is really about helping educate you on what the shared appreciation program can be for you. Now, many of you have not even heard about CalHFA until the Dream for All program launched, but CalHFA has been around since 1975, and the state agency, California Housing Finance Agency, can help support our local communities in low to moderate home ownership. So we're trying to create sustainable and affordable home ownership. I know the Dream for All is the spotlight right now, but there's several other programs that CalHFA offers, including the My Home Assistance and the Zip Assistance program, of which we can have some discussion on this evening as well too. But I know many of you are here tonight for the Dream for All program, which I totally understand, which we hopefully will get you all the information you need for your path to home ownership with this program. Now, we did do a class just like this about 30 days ago, but there's been a lot of events that have taken place with the Dream for All program since then. So that's why we thought it would be great for us to kind of circle back up and talk a little bit more about where the program is at, and make sure that you're in a position to be able to either apply for the program, or if you're already pre-approved, better understand about what the next steps might look like for you. I will have to say, with the Dream for All program, there's a lot of information that's available to you, whether it's through social media, through your online search, or maybe just through other industry partners. And unfortunately, there is some misinformation out there. Just yesterday, we saw some information that was sent out that was incorrect, whether it was an income limit or just the guidelines of the program. So what I would encourage you is really only connect with trusted resources on this program, because unfortunately, a lot of misinformation is shared about this program, a lot of which can be past guidelines of last year's programs or income limits that aren't relevant for this program. I would consider our team a trusted resource for the program. So if you do have questions, especially after tonight's class, or you have friends, family, maybe some coworkers that want to learn a little bit more about Dream for All, we'd encourage you to have them to get connected with us. So let's talk a little bit about the program. We all know this program, if you haven't learned, it provides up to 20% of your sales price in assistance, or $150,000, whichever is less. And that is based upon the purchase price or the value of the home, whichever is less. These assistance funds can go towards your down payment or your closing costs. So we can take that 20% and apply towards down payment or closing costs. Most clients will use that full amount to try to go all towards down payment, because most clients want to get to a position where you have at least 20% down and entails no mortgage insurance for your financing. Again, the assistance is capped at $150,000 or 20% of your sales price, whichever is less. This is a one-to-one shared appreciation program. I'm going to share with you a little bit later on tonight what shared appreciation means and how that will affect you in terms of long-term events like either refinancing or selling your home when you have a product like this. So, for example, if you have 20% from the program, so let's say I receive $150,000 in assistance, I have to repay the $150,000 at time of refinance or sell of my home. We're going to talk about the refinance portion because you actually get a one-time refinance option with the program, but 20% contribution from the program equates to 20% equity share. And we'll talk about that in a second. It is one-to-one. So if I took 10% through the Dream for All program, then my equity share would be 10%, for example. So that's what the one-to-one means. Now, clients that make less than 80% of the AMI or the area median income, the shared appreciation is a maximum of 15%. So even if I borrow 20% from the program, if I'm below 80% AMI, my shared appreciation is 15%. Now, one of the components of the guidelines that gets a little bit confusing is the max contribution, and that means the maximum that I can put out of pocket. And that max amount is 5%. So if I receive $150,000 from the program, and let's say my purchase price is $1 million, right? So the maximum I can contribute as a buyer would be $50,000 or 5% of my purchase price. So no additional funds can be added on to that 5% maximum. Now, you may ask, why do we do that? Well, the reason why that's in the guidelines is because we want to protect those that truly need this program, right? If you have the ability to be able to put much more down in terms of down payment, maybe the Dream for All program is not the right fit for you. So this 5% cap allows those that truly need access to a phenomenal program like Dream for All to truly use the program to help them on their path towards homeownership. Now, the assistance program is not forgivable. I think that's one of the misconceptions out there. It must be paid back based upon future triggering events like the refinance, like we mentioned earlier, sell of the property, or the completion of the 30-year mortgage. It is in your best interest to pay back the shared appreciation loan as soon as possible, because at the time of payoff, then you can also pay back the shared appreciation and stop the equity appreciation growth. There is a one-time exception for refinancing, and we get that question a lot. So if, for example, you purchase your home in 2024 using the program, you decide to refinance in 2025 or 2026, then you'll have an opportunity one time to refinance your mortgage for a lower interest rate. That's called a rate and term refinance to help lower your monthly outgo. Now, if you have subsequent refinances, your second time, for example, you decide to refinance, that second time would trigger the repayment of the shared appreciation, and at that time would also trigger the appreciation repayment. Now, if your home does not appreciate in value, so if I purchase my home for $500,000 and over the next 5 years it stays at that same amount, or let's say it even declines, right? Well, there wouldn't be no shared appreciation repayment. So the 20% I owe to the state would not be repaid. There's only appreciation repayment if there is equity in the home at the time of sale or refinance. However, the original funds, in this case, if I bought a $500,000 home, the original $100,000 shared appreciation loan would still be owed to CalHFA. Now, this loan is only for occupants that will be using this home as a primary residence, and they must occupy the home for at least 12 months. So no ownership can change unless that triggers the event of the repayment of the shared appreciation loan. Interest rates are set by CalHFA, and that's another thing that's a little confusing for most, because as we meet with clients preparing them for the registration, I get a question about the varying of interest rates. Now, do interest rates vary from one lender to the next, which is not the case. The rates for this program are not available yet. A comparable rate that we saw in phase one of Dream for All looked very similar to the My Home Assistance rate that CalHFA offers on a daily basis, but the rates are not available yet. But when they do launch in May, rates will look very similar to what we have today on the My Home Assistance program, but they are not available yet. And rates will change daily. So the way that works is if you're lucky enough to win the lottery for this program, then at the time that you have an accepted offer with a seller, you will have the opportunity to finally reserve your funds and then lock in your rate based upon the prevailing market rates at that time. The last thing I want to touch on this screen would just be the buy down options. So what a buy down means is that you as a buyer are basically taking seller funds. So the seller's contributing to bringing down your interest rate. There's a variety of different ways you can do that. There's a permanent buy down where you're taking and permanently buying down the interest rate. Let's say rates were 6.6 today and the seller contribution allows you to lower your rate to 6%. That is a permanent buy down. But there's other options like 2-1 buy downs that allows you to buy down your rate in the first 2 years of your mortgage. So you could have your first start rate be 2% lower than today's posted rate, then it would escalate to 1% higher, and then finally to the fully amortized rate. And there's basically a 1-1 buy down, so it's a 1-year buy down. So there's a variety of different ways that that can be done. That all has to be seller paid when you do those buy downs. In today's market, I don't really see that as something that's really happening in today's market, but certainly is an option if you are selected on the Dream for All program. Now, just a couple highlights on guidelines and some of the requirements. It is a minimum 660 score for low income housing buyers. For moderate income buyers, it's 680. This program is only compatible with a conventional loan. It does not work with FHA loans, VA loans, or USDA loans. It's only for the conventional product. And debt to income ratio, which is a calculation that lenders use, it's your expenses versus your income, is 45 to 50%. You have to have at least a 700 credit score to go beyond a 45% debt to income ratio. And the income limits for the program are going to be based upon where you purchase. So if I reside in LA County, for example, today, and we'll talk more about this in just a second, the lottery results will be based upon where I currently reside, but where I decide to purchase using Dream for All will be with those respective income limits. So we've included some of the income limits for some general areas across California here on screen. We would encourage you to get connected with us, and you can get a full list of the income limits by county on the state side, but we can also send those back to you as well. But as we meet with clients to go through their eligibility for the program, we'll talk about where you think you want to purchase, and then the respective income limits will apply accordingly. One of the applicants on the loan must be an active California resident to be eligible on the program. Now, the big requirement, which it really needs to be spotlighted a bit more because this is a change from phase 1 of Dream for All, and that's the first generational home buyer requirement. Now, a first-time buyer is someone that hasn't owned in the last 3 years, but the first generational requirement's a little bit different. So let me kind of explain that to you. First generation means that I have not owned a home in the last 7 years and that my parents are not currently homeowners in the US. Now, if my parents were owners at the time of passing, for example, then I would not be considered first generation. If my parents live in a foreign country but have real estate assets in the US, then I would not be considered first generation. If my parents don't actively own and I haven't owned in the last 7 years, then I am considered first generation. Now, only one of the borrowers on the application must be first generation. Okay, so if I'm applying with a partner, I have a dual application or a joint application, only one of the buyers must be first generational. But all buyers must be first time buyers. And a first time buyer, again, is someone that hasn't owned in the last 3 years. And then we just talked a little bit about first generation, haven't owned in the last 7 years, and that my parents don't currently own in the US. Okay, so we had a question that came in the chat, which is there a purchase price ceiling for the program? So there is not a ceiling per se. However, there are maximum loan limits for the program, which is basically 1.149,500 Fannie Mae loan limits will apply accordingly. So these are all Fannie Mae conventional loan products. So to answer your question, there is no maximum sales price. But what we found in doing the calculations based upon income limits, maximum out of pocket of 5%, generally the maximum sales price we'll be able to get to is about $1.3 million. But we'd encourage you get connected with us. for a consultation. If you haven't already done so, we'll walk through that math for you. Um, and then a question was in the chat was, and we'll talk more about this in a bit, but I want to just kind of quickly address what kind of documentation do we need to show that we are first-time buyers and first-generational buyers. So at this point, there is no documentation required. It's just based upon your acknowledgments. So a first-time buyer not owning the last 3 years, that's pretty easy to identify because if there's not a mortgage on your credit report, nothing shows up in legal records. That's easy. The first generational side of it's a little bit trickier. At this point, you're basically acknowledging that you're a first generational buyer, and we'll go through kind of some questioning together during your consultation to just make sure you truly are first generation. We're going to talk about the registration system in just a bit, but when you go through the registration system, there will be acknowledgments of being a first generation buyer. Anyone that is selected in the lottery system prior to receiving a voucher, there will be an audit process just to validate that you're truly a first generational. But it is kind of more of an attestation to the best of your knowledge. And I think it's under penalty of perjury of being a first generational buyer. Okay, so that's a really kind of a serious requirement. Let's talk a little bit about the workflow in accessing Dream for All, because I think there's a little bit of a misconception. I know Dream for All last year was a first come, first serve product, and that sparked kind of a frantic nature of that product. So just for those of you who aren't aware of what happened with Dream for All last year the program rolled out. There was about 10 days worth of funding to help, I think, 2,300 families across the state. But it was first come, first serve. So in order to get access, you had to have an accepted offer for a property, and then you got reserved, right? Well, as you could imagine, that created this kind of frantic nature of buying. And even though that product phase one is now wrapped up, some of that kind of thought process with the program has carried over into phase two of this program. So I just want to just make sure everybody's aware this is not a first come, first serve product. This is completely lottery based. So whether you decide to enter the registration at 8 a.m. on April 3rd, or you enter at 12 o'clock during your lunch break on April 29th, it does not change anything with your eligibility or your edge to get access to these funds. This program is completely randomized through a lottery system. So don't feel like you have to rush. I know I've probably worked with over 600 clients so far preparing for the registration. And I think most of which think they have to be the first one in, and it's just really not that case. So, we'll talk a little bit more about how we're working with clients, but I just want to ensure that our audience understands that don't feel pressure to complete your registration right away or to get pre-approved right away. We want this to be an experience that's enjoyable for you as a first-time buyer, and not that you have to rush out because it's a competitive nature. This is all completely randomized. We want to make sure that you get the right information, you understand your options, and you can take the next steps in applying confidently, and then we'll have to kind of let the lottery do what it does. Okay. All right, I'm getting a lot of questions in the chat. I'm gonna try to keep up with as much as I can. Ken from our team is also helping me out. I first want to kind of explain the workflow, and then we'll kind of address questions as we can in the chat. But thanks so much for the interaction. So let's talk about kind of this workflow. And for those of you that are currently working with us as clients, we thank you for that. We're really excited to help you. So if I've got a chance to do your consultation so far, great. Hopefully you're pre-approved and ready to go for the registration. If you're kind of considering what lender can work for you, we'd love to be able to be a partner for you in this journey. But let me kind of walk you through the workflow. So the first thing is to get a pre-approval letter. And I just want to be clear with our audience, a pre-approval letter is just not some lender just completing a template and sending you back an email saying you're pre-approved. This is a certification that a qualified lender with CalHFA or approved lender has to go through. And let me just explain to you what that means. I have to certify and validate your income. I have to make sure that your desktop underwriting approved. I have to verify your credit score, your income, and I have to certify you as a first generational buyer. So I know I get so many emails and text messages from clients saying, can you just fill out this pre-approval letter and just send it back to me? Doesn't work that way, right? So this is a big step. This is probably going to be one of the biggest purchases you make in your upcoming financial futures. But more importantly, the guidelines require us as an approved lender to certify you basically for the program. And so we want you to enter that lottery registration confident because you got a 26-day period of time to register. So we certainly wouldn't want someone that thinks they're qualified entering the registration, get a winning voucher, come to find out through the audit, the state says you're not qualified. So really important to take the time to make sure that you're working with a qualified lender such as ourselves that really understand the product to have you prepared to enter the registration confidently. Okay, so step one is get the pre-approval letter. So that comes out of a consultation with us. We're certifying you that you're eligible. Next step is completing 1 hour of shared appreciation training. It's completely free. Once you're pre-approved with us, we're going to send you the links for that training. So you'll have that. That then takes you to the registration. Registration is not open yet for the program. Does not open till April 3rd, runs all the way till April 29th. The question I get is what to expect from the registration. So here's what I think it will look like. There'll be a series of questions that you'll go through, some attestations, especially around first generational. So you'll answer those questions. At the very end, you're going to have to select your loan officer that you're partnering with. Hopefully you're partnering with myself, Jason Meda. You'll click me on the drop down, and then what it'll do is it'll notify me via email that you've selected us, and then I'll upload your certified pre-approval. We'll send you a copy of it as part of your pre-approval, but we're going to validate that and send that back into the registration system. So that happens in the span of 26 days. So rest assured, whether you apply April 3rd, April 29th, as long as you're within that window, you're okay. Now, many of clients that are reaching out to us want to know when the lottery results are going to come out. We still don't know. What I've heard is that we'll probably have results middle of May, would be the expectation. Because what will happen is if you're selected as a winner of the voucher, there's a validation or audit process the state will go through. I would encourage you that when you've submitted your registration, double and triple check to make sure your email address is correct in the system, because CalHFA, if you're a winning voucher winner, they will communicate out with you on any follow-up items that they might need from you to do some validation, whether it's a current pay stub or a question about your application for first generation. So you might have some correspondence to validate your eligibility. So just be aware of that. Double check, triple check your email when you go into the registration system. Make sure you check your spam filters after the 29th, because that response over email could have went into your spam. So the lottery winners will then come out middle of May is kind of what the expectation is. If you're selected as a winning lottery winner, then you'll have 90 days to go find a home. Okay. And finding a home means getting into a ratified agreement with the seller anytime in that span of 90 days. Now, one of the questions I get as it relates to the timeline is around new construction. I've got a chance to meet with several clients today, and that question has come up frequently. If you're looking at new construction, one is we really should not be home shopping yet because we don't know if we're going to win the lottery for this program. So I'd encourage you, while it's super tempting after you get your pre-approval, I would do some searches online, but we certainly don't want to get too far down the road of looking, because right now it's about a 9% probability that you'll get a winning voucher for the program. But as it relates to new construction, there is only a certain time period that if you get a voucher and then you have an agreement with a builder for the production time of that house, I would estimate that production time to be more than 4 to 5 months. So theoretically, if you do get a winning voucher, we probably would have to need that new home completed by November. A lot of production builders out there are building for next year. Unfortunately, with Dream for All, you won't have that long of a timeline to reserve or keep your reservation in place. So I would say if you're looking at new home, probably no longer than November. Okay. Okay. So this slide kind of highlights what I just shared with you. So really, again, registration information, the pre-approval, the 1 hour of shared appreciation, all those things are really important. I know we have a bunch of questions in the chat, so I'm going to go through a quick example, then I'm going to go back in the chat and answer some of the questions that you guys are really interactive with us, which I really appreciate. And I'll make sure that we get all these questions answered throughout tonight's class. So let's look at the kind of the numbers behind the scenes here with California Dream for All. We do know it's 20% appreciation, but 20% contribution from the shared appreciation loan. Let's kind of look on screen to see what that would look like for us. Now, traditionally, for first-time buyers, the minimum down payment is 3%, right? So if I bought a $450,000 house, 3% would be 13,500, and then there's expected closing costs when you buy a house, which generally are about 2 to 3% of your purchase price. So traditionally, without the resource of Dream for All, you would probably need about 22 to 27,000 saved. Now, there are other alternative products within CalHFA that we can talk with you guys about tonight, but I want to kind of give you a backdrop of the comparison between traditional conventional loan versus a conventional loan with Dream for All. So with Dream for All, if I bought the same house for 450,000, the 20% would be $90,000, and then my out of pocket, if I want to use all funds towards my down payment, would in essence be my closing costs. So maybe the $19,000 to $13,500. Okay. Now you can split some of those funds up to use some towards closing costs, some towards down payment. That's absolutely an option. But for most clients, they're using the full amount towards 20%. One of the questions I get is that some clients think they're going to buy a home with absolutely no money out of pocket. Just keep in mind when you purchase a home, you do have to make an earnest money deposit, which an earnest money deposit in California is going to be anywhere between 1 to 3% of your sales price that you'll have to make as an initial deposit. Now, that will count towards your total out of pocket expense, but it's initial investment you're going to make. So even though I'll have access to the Dream for All program for maybe down payment and closing costs, I still will need some funds out of pocket to make my home purchase. Okay, I'm going to take some questions in the chat, and then I want to explain to you shared appreciation, make sure we have a good understanding of that. One question was around citizenship requirements for applicants. So there are a variety of different citizenship statuses, whether it's an H-1B1, a green card holder. I would, for that question, we'll probably have to take that offline because it just depends on what type of immigration status you have, what documents you're currently holding. But you do not have to be a U.S. citizen on the program to be eligible. Question on buy downs. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Yes, you can buy down the mortgage as a permanent buy down or a 2-1 buy down. Permanent buy downs can be done with either the seller's funds contributing or buyer funds. Permanent means I'm buying down the loan permanently for the duration of the loan. So if today's rates are 6.6, I want to buy down to 6%. That would be a permanent buy down. 2-1 buy down is lowering by 2% for my initial first year. Then I go 1% higher and then to the fully amortized rate. Okay, let me see if there's any questions that kind of we can spotlight here. Okay, we talked a little bit about this. I'll kind of just take this question again. So is it possible to apply for less than 20% contribution, any amount, or required 1-to-1? So yes, you can take less access to shared appreciation. If you want 10%, fine, then it would be a 10% shared appreciation. It's a 1-to-1 shared appreciation ratio. Now you still are capped at 5% out of pocket, so that won't change that math, but you can take lesser if that works better for your home buying design. Another question that I think is really important is what happens if you don't find a home in 90 days? So there may be an extension opportunity to extend your voucher. We haven't been given guidance on that, but I've heard that there will be some extension opportunities. It won't be a long period of time because if you can't find a home, ultimately those funds will have to get reinvested back into the funding. Okay, I'll take some more questions in just a bit. We're going to be here on air with you so as long as we need to answer these questions. But let's talk a little bit about shared appreciation because, I do hear kind of rumblings out there that, this is, free money and, forgivable, and it really isn't any of that. And I think it's really important to understand that the investment that the state is making in your opportunities for home ownership, but how that could impact you in your future saleability of your home and refinance options. So let's walk through an example, and this example can also be found on the CalHFA website. So for example, if I purchased a $500,000 home and I use 20% from the program, so we'll say $100,000, I'm going to be financing $400,000, right? So we know that now we're going to be in a 20% shared appreciation agreement. Now, if I was to look at my home value 5 years later, and my home appreciated roughly by 4% on an annual basis, now my home is worth 640, right? Now, in that case, my home has now gone up in value by $140,000, right? My home appreciation is 140,000. At that point in time, me as an owner, I have about $112,000 in equity. The shared appreciation agreement would be at $28,000 back to the state, plus the original 100,000 that I received from the program. Okay. That would be triggered if I had maybe my second refinance or if I sold the home. You can see the example of selling the home at the far right. So now let's say I sell this home and I sold the home for 640,000. I would pay back through the Dream for All that 100,000 I originally received plus the $28,000, but I still have my equity position in the sell the home, and then my estimated mortgage balance that I would also have to pay back is $370,000, right? And so maybe this next home that I purchased, now I take my equity that I have out. Now I'm able to use that equity of $142,000 potentially as my next more traditional purchase. And that truly is the design of the program. That would be kind of the perfect scenario. The Dream for All program is not a quick turnaround, get equity, sell my home, on to the next home. This is kind of a more of a introductory to home ownership to create sustainable home ownership and affordable home ownership, right? Most first-time buyers that I work with out throughout the country are able to put maybe 3 to 5% down. So the opportunity to put 20% down is a phenomenal opportunity, right? But it should be looked upon as an opportunity to create affordable and sustainable homeownership. So I do think it's going to be several years before we get that appreciation where we can look to maybe purchase the next home, pay off the shared appreciation loan as well as the appreciation agreement, and then hopefully buy that next home. Here's kind of another look at appreciation with this program. So you can see, over 15 years in this program, as my home value goes up, let's say in 15 years from now, I go to $900,000 based upon 4% appreciation. You can see the gap here represented by the yellow bar would be my Dream for All contribution. And then my equity still can grow over time based upon appreciation of my home. Theoretically, as I pay down my first mortgage, then the first mortgage goes down, appreciation goes up, and that gap widens, right? So the goal for this program is not to create a massive shared appreciation agreement with the state. The delivery for you is to be able to get access to homeownership, but still cap the appreciation over time. Okay, so many of you that are tuning in tonight's class have either been already connected with us, you have an application in process, you've already met with me and you're pre-approved and I invited you to tonight's class, or you're just thinking about, is the Dream for All program right for me? I will say there's several different lenders that offer this program. We are the leading provider of Dream for All. We provide the most number of Dream for All reservations last year. We're the number one lender for CalHFA, and we got a chance to be a part of phase one rollout. And I get a chance to really work directly with CalHFA on these programs. So it's really important that as we work with clients, you're getting the right information. So if you're thinking about different choices for CalHFA, we love to be a partner with you on this journey towards homeownership. I can assure you that you'll have all the right information to get you prepared for the registration. This isn't just about getting pre-approved. It's designing a home buying plan for affordable home ownership and making sure that you have all of the boxes checked in preparation for the registration. So, and that's why we teach classes like this. Now, as we kind of roll back into our Q&A, I just want to kind of provide you some of the information on next steps. If you do have follow-up questions after tonight's class, we can also do an introductory call with you. But those of you that are looking to get pre-approved on the program, there's three kind of steps to our process. There's an online application. There's an upload process of income and asset documents. By the way, we only do a soft credit check, which is different than a lot of lenders because you may not get access to this program because you may not win the lottery. So we don't want to put a hard inquiry on your credit because we don't know what this path of homeownership with this program might look like for you. And then the third step in the process is to schedule a video consultation with me. Right now, we're doing kind of an express consultation because we have so many clients that we're helping out throughout the state. So it's a 15-minute session with me one-on-one. It can be as long as 30 minutes, but a lot of our clients, want to get access to the program. So we're trying to build out as much capacity to help as many homeowners in our communities. But that's kind of what our process looks like. I will say that we're about a week scheduled out on our consultation, but the reason why we're in high demand for this program because we really know what we're doing with the CalHFA program. So rest assured, if you choose to work with our team, you'll be in preparation or well ahead of the launch for the registration. I can assure you of that. So with that said, I'm going to dive into questions. I know we have a lot of guests in our class tonight, and we're going to stay live here and answer all the questions that you have, and I'll kind of take some of these to the group and answer these on air and do the best I can. And I want to just spotlight a couple things for you as we get wrapped up, but I'll kind of answer some questions here on air. And this is a question that comes up a lot, which is, does this program work for below market home or below market communities? So that's an interesting one, and it's going to depend on the community that you're looking at. So BMR programs or BMR communities are where you have a discounted price of home. That discounted price of home also comes with what we call as deed restrictions. So you're restricted on resaleability of the home, who lives in the home, your income levels. And so at times that may conflict with some of the restrictions that are in the Dream for All program. So what I would encourage registrants to do for the program is to get pre-approved first for the program, enter the lottery, see if you get a winning voucher, and then we can talk more specifically about communities. But I will have to say the BMR program or community that you're looking at may not match up to some of the restrictions within the Dream for All program. Okay, so another question is, if we plan to apply for the program next year, what is an ideal time to reach out to you? So we would encourage you to reach out to us anytime. I will say there is no definitive plans on this program being around next year. I hope it is. I think the goal is to make this more an annual thing, but it is predicated off of state general funds. So I think one of the things that most of our clients or prospective clients don't understand is that these funds are not coming from CalHFA. CalHFA is administering these programs. The guidelines have been driven by agreements with the state legislators of who gets access to these programs, but the funding has come from the state general fund. So the model is being built and improved upon as we go through this program, but it still remains to be seen if this will be a next year program. I really hope it will be. I think it's a wonderful opportunity, but it is predicated on the allocation of state general funds. And as a side note, I know many of clients that were pre-approved with us last year were a little bit disappointed by the changes of income limits, minimum or maximum contributions, and the first generational requirement for this year. But those were things that were kind of agreed upon through the state legislators that would be a part of the phase 2 of the Dream for All program. Okay, let me just. Question was on the amount of funding. So yeah, the amount of funding is about 220 million, which is less than we had. I think it was 300 million in phase 1. But I will have to say, when I look at the number of reservations, I mean, we'll probably have about 17 to 1800 reservations statewide. My sense is there's probably about a 9% probability. From what I've heard, there's about 21,000 expected registrants and 17 to 1800 expected vouchers to be issued. And then quite kind of a general question was about getting access to a realtor. So if you do get selected for the program, the question is really kind of, should I work with a realtor? I would encourage you to work with a realtor. Realtors should be experts in their market, whether in LA, Orange, San Diego, Eureka, Bay Area, Sacramento Valley, whatever the case may be. As a California-based loan team, we have preferred realtors that I work with all across California. If you want us to make an introduction, and some of you attending tonight's class have already been introduced to our preferred realtors, any of our preferred realtors across the markets that we serve have all been through Dream for All training with me, so they understand how to structure the offer, because Dream for All is a little bit different. And I think it's important to work with a qualified realtor. Now, there's no certification process for the realtors, but I think it's important for them to understand how to structure an offer, because it's not like just making an offer on a 20% conventional loan. There's going to be questions that a seller or a listing agent's going to have on your offer. So I think having a realtor that can clearly and concisely communicate that to a prospective seller is really important. I'm gonna take a few more questions in here. So I think I understand this question, but the question is, if I'm not selected in the lottery, are there any other programs that could fit me if I'm not first generation? And the answer is yes. And we didn't put those into today's presentation, but CalHFA, I know there's a spotlight right now under the Dream for All program, but throughout the year I work with CalHFA on a variety of different programs. The more popular program is called My Home Assistance. My Home Assistance can support you on a conventional loan, FHA loan, USDA loan, VA loan. And in essence, what it does, it provides anywhere between 3% to 3.5% of your purchase price in assistance. There is no maximum contribution on the program, so you can put down as much as you want. There's no sales price restrictions. And the income limits are based upon 150% of the median income. Here's an example. I worked with a client earlier today that wanted to get access to Dream for All, but they really want to buy in Fremont, but their income's too high for Alameda County. And after looking at the maximum contribution and where their income was at, it made more sense to go with the My Home product for them. And so we were able to pre-approve them today for the My Home Assistance. They don't have to wait for the lottery, and now they're able to go out and start home shopping right away in a market they want versus trying to wait for Dream for All and maybe purchasing in a county that's not their true desire. Okay, let me take some more questions. I'm just kind of rattling through some of these. Um, so the question, would the 20% shared appreciation equity be eligible as a tax credit deduction? Um, I'm not a tax advisor, so unfortunately, I can't give you tax guidance on that. I would encourage you to talk to your tax advisor on that. Upon sale of home, I think you might want to consider that potentially as that could be taxable income. But I'm not a tax advisor, so I unfortunately couldn't give any guidance on that. The tax guidance on that will probably come out once um, the program officially launches. At this point, we're only in phase 2 of Dream for All, so we really haven't seen any refinances. I haven't personally seen any sales of homes because most clients that got access to phase 1 are only less than a year in their home at this point. Okay. Okay, let me just see it. Okay, let me take this question that was put in the chat, which is we know 20% is equivalent to no PMI. So as long as I put down 20%, what is the minimum percentage you can put down to eliminate PMI? So it is 20%. So I have to put at least 20% down to eliminate PMI. If you put 17% down, you would have PMI. PMI will have a factor at the 17% level that is the same at 15% down versus 19.99% down. That factor for most buyers is about 0.08% of the loan amount. So we take the 0.08%, we divide it by 12, and that's how we come up with a monthly figure. PMI is based upon how much you finance, what your credit score is, and then how much you put down. So it's advantageous for you to have a higher credit score, put more money down, because then that'll lower the cost of mortgage insurance. Think about mortgage insurance in this way. So mortgage insurance is like car insurance, right? The more expensive I have as a car, wherever I locate or have that car stored, what my driving record looks like, that will impact credits, your auto insurance. Same thing applies for private mortgage insurance. And what private mortgage insurance does, in essence, basically insures the lender against default by the buyer. Okay, great questions, everyone. Let me just make sure. Okay, I want to make sure that I'm just going to kind of scroll through some of your questions. Another question is, can you opt out of the first refinance exemption and just pay back the down payment assistance and shared appreciation equity at the first time of the refinance? Absolutely. I mean, I think the sooner you can pay back the shared appreciation loan and the equity share, the better for you, right? So, if there's an opportunity where you get access to the program you purchased in 24 and, rates cooperate and you're purchasing in 2020 or you're refinancing, I'm sorry, in 2025 or 2026, absolutely. So there's no prepayment penalty, there's no restrictions. I mean, we love if you can pay off that assistance sooner. I think it's certainly advantageous for you to do so. Okay. All right. Good questions. Okay. All right. What other questions we have from the group? I'm just kind of going through the chat. I want to make sure. Okay, here's a question I didn't answer. The question is, what would the escrow process look like with CalHFA Dream for All? So that's a good question. So timelines, I think a lot of people have the misconception that if I get Dream for All, it's going to be this wildly long escrow process. So it'll be a standard 30-day escrow time period. It may be difficult to do shorter closing time periods because of some of the mechanics of Dream for All. I will say on other products that I offer under CalHFA that's not lottery based, like My Home Assistance, we offer a quick close program where we can close as quick as 14 days. Dream for All probably won't be that type of rhythm because it just has more mechanics to it. There's more documents involved, but it will be a traditional 30-day process. So for those of you that haven't attended one of our standard home buying classes, we go through the workflow of buying a house. We'll also share this with you, after you consult with us, but we call it our 6 steps of home buying. And so the escrow process comes from the date of agreement with the seller to when you get the keys to the house. That time period usually is 30 days. Okay. And then question was, does my credit score affect the interest rate I am quoted when buying a house with the program? And the answer is no. So you do have a minimum credit score, which is on a low income housing client, it's 660, moderate income, it's 680 to enter the program. So whether I'm a 680 or I'm a perfect 850, I still have the same interest rate offering under these programs. Okay. And then a question was, how much do you suggest we save for closing costs? So if you decide to use the full 20% towards your down payment, generally closing costs will be 2 to 3% of your sales price. That's kind of what we recommend. Now, with these programs, I think it's important to be transparent with you. Lender costs will vary by the lender that you work with. And these costs from an origination perspective look a lot different than traditional conventional loans. The economics on these loans are different for lenders. And you will see a variety of different cost structures. As the leading provider of CalHFA loans, I'm pleased to announce we're probably the lowest cost structure in these loans. And those are things that we'll review during a consultation with you. I think that's pretty important when you're looking at your options here. So even though you're getting pre-approved by a certain lender, you got to be careful that their cost structures could look wildly different. So we would just kind of put that out there as a footnote. Now, once you have an accepted voucher and you have an accepted offer with a seller, that's when, we really need to make sure these costs are in line with expectations. But to answer that question again, though, the total closing costs, including lender costs, should be somewhere estimated around 2 to 3% of your purchase price. Okay, and then can we buy a different county from the county we originally planned? If so, how is the income limit affected? So great question. You are not bound to a particular county or purchase price or loan amount after you've received a voucher. So here's an example. I'm going to purchase in Sacramento County based upon my pre-approval and the income limits. The income limits in Sacramento County are 180,000, but I get the voucher and I change my mind and I want to purchase in Santa Clara County, right? Well, the Santa Clara County limits are higher than Sacramento. I'm still within the income limits. As long as I'm within my pre-approval range for qualifying that Jason has provided to me, I can purchase in Santa Clara County. Where it gets, challenging is if you're trying to get pre-approved in Sacramento, but then you go to San Joaquin County and you try to purchase because you don't fit the income limits. that wouldn't work in that scenario. So as long as you're within the income limits, you're completely fine. Now, from an underwriting perspective, so let's kind of switch away from Dream for All, but from an underwriting perspective, it has to be a reasonable commute to your employer if you're not in a remote situation. So if I'm not completely remote from my job and I have to be in the office 3 or 4 times a week, we have to make sure it's a reasonable commute distance, which generally is about an hour and a half commute. Okay. Let me just kind of go back to that point again, because I get this a lot in working with clients. If you're pre-approved, for example, for a $600,000 purchase price, you're not obligated to that purchase price just because you get a winning voucher from the program. You could find a home at $500,000, or maybe you're eligible for $700,000. We can always adjust your pre-approval once you get a winning voucher. So I get that question a lot. The other thing I got clarification on last night, which I think is really important. So if I submit to the registration my information, not including, say, my partner, I get a winning voucher, but my partner reconsiders and wants to join me in the home purchase and modify our pre-approval, so to speak. As long as myself and my partner still fall within the income limits for the county I want to buy in, that pre-approval can still be adjusted as long as one of us have an eligible voucher. Okay, so that's really important. I think there was some misinformation on that before. But again, you can submit to the registration with a baseline pre-approval that can always be adjusted. Let me just kind of just comment on this question, which is, will we be notified from the D of A or from CalHFA on the voucher via email? When will that occur? So let me just kind of reiterate this. So we're expecting the vouchers to be awarded sometime in the middle of May. Still kind of a to be determined situation. The registration closes down April 29th. The lottery will occur at some point after that time. If you're a winning lottery voucher holder, you'll be sent an email from the CalHFA. That will happen after the investigative process or audit process, because they will audit every winning voucher to make sure that everything is in line for qualifying. You may get follow-up questions from CalHFA asking for clarification on maybe your first generational eligibility, maybe a home that you owned 8 years ago, whatever the case may be. So I would encourage you, just after April 29th, be checking your spam filters just to make sure you're not missing any emails from the state or us for that matter. Okay, let me just see if there's anything. Okay. In case I didn't mention this, we do a credit report check, so that's has to be done because I have to make sure make sure you hit the minimum credit scores, but it is only a soft credit check with us. What I've heard is that many lenders are charging you up front for credit report fees. Our team does not do that. Our consultation that we do for you is absolutely a free service. We want to make sure if you truly want this product that you get access to it. So there is no upfront cost with us. And then a question in the chat was, how do I schedule a consultation with you? So we'll have Ken will go ahead and put the link in the chat for our scheduling system. As I mentioned earlier, because we are the leading provider of these programs, we are in high demand. But I just want to rest assured that even though if you try to book a consultation today, we're about a week and a half out, but you will still be well taken care of in plenty of time for the registration. So this is completely randomized lottery. Doesn't make a difference if you apply 8 a.m. April 3rd or on your lunch break on April 29th. You have just as much access to the next person in the program. So we have many clients right now that we're working on that frankly don't have the eligible credit score, but we're working on some credit coaching with them, and they might not be ready to go until April 15th. But if they are ready on April 15th, they're still going to get access to the program. So I know again, it goes back to my point earlier, in case you're joining us late, there's a thought that I have to be first in or I'm not going to get the program. It's just is not the case. This isn't a first come, first serve product. It's completely randomized lottery, and we want to have this be an equitable program for everyone to get access to. Okay, great. Okay, great. Okay, perfect. I'll kind of go back to this question. Does the property need to be used as a primary residence? Answer is yes. It has to be a primary residence. This is not a product to create a real estate empire, so to speak, right? This is an opportunity to create affordable and sustainable home ownership for you. So yes, you will have to occupy this as your primary residence. I saw this question in the chat, and I think Ken answered this to you, but I want to bring it to the group because this question comes up often: is can we purchase multi-family properties with this program? The answer is no. This only can be a one-unit property. Now, what's a one-unit property? That's a single family home, that's a condo, that's a townhouse, that's a halfplex. There's not many of those around, but halfplexes even includes manufactured homes. However, manufactured homes cannot be in a park. It has to be in a place where it's actually on real estate that's owned, and that would constitute eligibility for the program. One other question that comes up sometimes around the first generation, and that is around if, let's say, I have a parent that owns a mobile home and the mobile home is in a park. And I get the question as well, is my parent still am I still eligible as first generation because my parents own a mobile in a park? The answer is yes, because a mobile home in a park is not considered real property. It's actually personal property, very similar to like a car, right? Because you're paying lease space. So in that case, that buyer would be a first generational buyer. Okay, let me see. All right. Okay. Okay, got a lot of you still with us. I'm just kind of scrolling through the chat. See if there's any other questions. We did have a question about, will the copy of the presentation be sent out to us? We won't be sending this out, but we are recording today's session. It'll be live on our YouTube channel. And those of you that aren't subscribed to our channel now, obviously it's J Mata Mortgage, so JMATA Mortgage. We would encourage you to subscribe, hit the like button on some of the videos that you see that pique your interest. We will update content on our channel as we get closer to registration. I think this is a great way of getting you the right information for these types of programs. We'll also be posting information on our Instagram too as well. So it's the same handle, JMata Mortgage. We try to post information on the program at least once a week. That's a great way of staying connected with us and letting you know the kind of the most latest information. Okay. And then another question in the chat was, is a house with an in-suite apartment, like a next-gen living, considered? That may qualify. What we would be probably more so looking at is a single family home that has what we call as an ADU, which is an accessory dwelling unit. So if you have a single family home with an ADU, that's still considered a one unit property. That type of property would still fall within the guidance of the program. Okay. All right. You're welcome. Thanks for the great comments there. We appreciate it. Okay, let's see if anything else. I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, but we want to be here to answer any questions that you have about the program. Make sure that you feel fully prepared. You know, as a kind of a side note, we have the extreme opportunity to get incredible opportunity to partner with various universities across the country. Here's a list of some of them. Now, I know many of them aren't California-based universities, but if you have a friend, family, or coworker that's choosing to work with APM and they've attended some of these universities, we pass along a discount in our closing costs of $750. If you're a state employee, an active state employee or a retiree, we also pass along a discount to help you out as well. This is all my contact information. In case we haven't got a chance to meet on video or phone in the past, this is all my information that you can reach out to me at any time. If you want to schedule a consultation, we'll make sure we get you the right information. We understand this program is in high demand as well as we are, and I love to get a chance to connect with all of our clients. If we can get a chance to meet up, it would be amazing, and I would love to help you on this path towards homeownership. To be able to get you in the best possible position to get a chance to purchase your home using the California Dream for All program. So I think we're there. I don't see any new questions in the chat. You guys have been an amazing audience. I really appreciate it. But if you have questions that didn't get answered this evening, you haven't maybe thought about doing the pre-approval, or you want to kind of figure what this scenario looks like for you, get connected with us. You can visit us at mortgageeducate.com. Again, this is a 3-step application process: online application, upload proof of income and assets, and then schedule your consultation with us. And you will be meeting with me one-on-one for that either 15-minute or 30-minute session. If you're a client that's in process, I'm excited to get a chance to meet with you and help put together that homeownership plan for you and kind of tackle any questions that you have in preparation for this program. So thank you so much. I hope everyone has a wonderful Thursday evening. Enjoy the rest of your week and your upcoming weekend, and we'll look forward to connecting with everyone soon. Have a good night.